All right, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. I am your special guest host, Carl Jackson, filling in for the great Eldersky. The number to call in to the ReliefFactor.com studio, 888-971-7243, 888-971-7243. Find me on Twitter at Carl Jackson Show, Facebook, Carl Jackson Radio, or you can check out my website, carljacksonshow.com. We got a jam-packed show for you today. Of course, we'll keep up with any breaking news that may occur, but we're going to have a talk about socialism versus capitalism. I sat in for Dennis Prager one time, and we had this chat. There's more going on now, so I feel like we need to have this discussion regarding socialism versus capitalism. There's a lot of people that may be listening, a lot of people that may be moderates, some that are in the Democrat Party, some that are people of faith, religious people. I'm gonna speak to a lot of people that believe in God or that are religious people, because I believe that the fact that religious people buy into socialism, it's a complete and utter shame. It's anti-biblical. Socialism is the epitome of greed. It's not compassionate in any way, shape, or form. The left in academia, these college campuses have done a great job of infiltrating and permeating the church and with their ideas. And a lot of people have grown to believe this nonsense, but it simply isn't true. It simply isn't true. I get frustrated. Yesterday, I made the mistake. I told you guys that I would share with you some examples because Governor Kathy Hochul of New York came out and tried to act like a holy roller, and she was telling she spoke at some type of Christian center of some sort, and she told the people, the congregants there, that listen, spread the gospel. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, of getting vaccinated. It's what Christians should do. All this kind of stuff. If you love your brothers, you love Jesus. Yada 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 yada. So the left always uses God when it's convenient. And I told you that I would share with you, I would prove with you, the left doesn't care about God. They don't care about your religious beliefs. If they did, they wouldn't be trying to pass this $3.5 trillion infrastructure deal. If they did, they wouldn't be allowing bioweapons to come across our border in people that have COVID. Meanwhile, they destroy your lives here. They don't care about you. You have to understand this. Here's a fundamental question that I have for you in the listening audience when it comes to socialism. This is what you have to ask yourself. Do you want to be somebody, or do you want to be owned by somebody? Let me say that again. Do you want to be somebody, or do you want to be owned by somebody? If you want to be somebody, then you must oppose socialism. First, let me break this down. Let's show you what liars the Democrat Party is when it comes to God. And I'm not talking about, listen, I know there's a lot of low information voters out there that vote Democrat. Maybe you go to a Christian church and you assume that Democrats really care for people, the Democrat Party. And let me make this clarification, because every time I talk about the Democrat Party, people assume that I think the Republican Party is holier than thou. I'm a Christian conservative American that happens to be black. In that order, I happen to vote and seek out Republican candidates simply because the values of their platform that sometimes they don't even believe in, quite frankly, align more closely with my biblical worldview than the Democrat Party does. If you just go platform by platform, that's what I base my ideas off on. I'm not a social justice warrior. I don't believe that America is systemically racist. I do believe at one point in time that was an issue. I don't think that's been an issue in God knows how long. And I think there's a bunch of boogeymen out there like Ibram X. Kendi and Big Perm Al Sharpton and all these other social justice warriors that keep people, black people, in panic, and white liberals in panic, so that they can continue to make a buttload of money off of them. But these people don't believe in God, and they never have. Barack Obama, you remember that? Remember that guy? Remember that guy? The bitter cleaner guy in April 2008. Then Senator Obama was caught on a tape at a fundraiser in San Francisco stating, you go into these small towns in Pennsylvania, and like a lot of small towns in the Midwest, the jobs have been gone now for 25 years. years and nothing's replaced them. And they failed through the Clinton administration and the Bush administration and each successive administration, and has said that somehow these communities are going to regenerate, and they have not. And it's not surprising then that they get bitter. They cling to guns or religion or antipathy to people who aren't like them, or anti-immigrant sentiment or anti-trade sentiment as a way to explain their frustrations. So we cling to the Second Amendment. Oh, and by the way, Obama has urged a national gun reform. Isn't that ironic when the left is really pushing socialism hard? Remind me again what the left or what dictators and tyrants always do first when they want to implement a socialist society. Oh, that's right. That's right. They take away the guns of free people. It's funny how that works. Democrats attempt to remove God from the platform. You guys remember that, this holy rolling party that Kathy Hochul belongs to. So in 2012, the Democratic National Convention had to overrule its own constituents in order to place God back in the platform. You guys may remember that. They literally booed God. But somehow this is the party of God. Somehow this is the party that even people of faith flock to. These low information voters.
So long, and they feel so betrayed by government.
Here's Barack Obama.
Well, it's not surprising then that they get bitter. They cling to guns or religion or antipathy towards people who aren't like them, or a way to explain their frustrations.
Yeah, so that's how we express our frustrations, by believing in God, by believing in a higher power, but by believing in the Second Amendment, by believing that our lives as individuals are so valuable that some dictator, some despot can't come in and just take away our individual rights and our civil liberties. And somehow that's a bad thing to the Democrat Party. Yet all of a sudden they're holy rollers. You may remember that Nancy Pelosi had this faux religious biblical ignorance back in 2008 when Nancy Pelosi wrote, the Bible tells us in the Old Testament, and I quote, to minister to the needs of God's creation is an act of worship. To ignore those needs is to dishonor the God who made us. She said it on Earth Day and Martin Luther King Day and Christmas. But ironically, there's no such verse. This is the party of the holy rollers. But Pelosi does think her moral values, including her support for abortion, are somehow the values of Jesus. And mind you now, they want to be able to kill babies all the way up until they're able to be born, all the way up to 9 months. But this woman, yeah, they really know God. You guys remember Barney Frank. You guys remember Barney Frank and his Bible hatred. He was a self-proclaimed pot-smoking atheist. He said that he was looking forward to his husband swearing him in on the Constitution rather than the Bible. The general distaste for the Bible, so long as it doesn't back Democratic positions, doesn't stop many Democrats from citing it whenever it's fun for them to do so, or whenever it's convenient to do so. Then there was Representative Charlie Rangel, who stated in September that opposing increases to federal welfare would send you to hell. So getting people hooked on welfare will send you to hell. Getting people dependent on government instead of God would send you to hell. This is what Charlie Rangel said. He said anyone that's familiar with the Bible, anything like that, Jesus said that you're going to straight to hell if you don't treat the lesser of his brothers and sisters. What a liar he was. What a liar he was. These people all belong behind a pulpit, don't they? And now this Kathy Hochul has the nerve to say, if you don't get the vaccine, basically you're not living like a Christian or a person of faith should live. These people are fundamental hypocrites. The question when it comes to socialism, do you want to be somebody or do you want to be owned by somebody? We'll touch on that on the other side.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
And as far as I'm concerned, if I may, as a former insider, the key question is going to be personnel. We need to build the bench that helps staff you and doesn't subvert you. What are your plans? What would the second term look like? And who's going to build that bench for you, sir?
Well, first of all, for your listeners, you did a fantastic job. You were terrific. I deal with you a lot. And I dealt with you after you went out and made a fortune. I hope you're making a fortune anyway, but I think you are based on your ratings. But I dealt with you a lot, and that's why I do your show, and I don't do a lot of other shows. I do people that I respect and people that have been fair, and you've been really, I congratulate you. But you were very important, and the great job that you did. You have a knowledge. I heard the word strategist mentioned in the opening, that you were a strategist, and that's really what Biden needs. He needs somebody to help him because our country is embarrassed. Our country has never been embarrassed like they are right now. In the speech in Alabama, where we had a massive crowd, they say 68,000 people showed up in the rain. It was rain and thunder. And I had the idea the morning of, this was Saturday, the morning of, put up the General Patton, the opening monologue that he does in the movie Patton, which I don't know if it got the Academy Award or very close. And I think George C. Scott did get the Academy Award. But we put up the opening monologue. And I said, that is not a woke general, but it's a general that knows how to win. And we have guys that are more interested in things that have nothing to do with our military. It's really what's going on now is crazy with our whole country. What they're doing now to our country is absolutely frightening.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 US bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEAls. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The Larry Elder Show. The number to call in to the relieffactor.com studio, 888-971-7243. Listen, we're going after socialism today. I remember speaking about this last year on Dennis Prager's show, and at the time, it was a foreboding issue. I was hoping that it wouldn't come to pass. I was hoping that people wouldn't be, the low information voters wouldn't show up en masse for Joe Biden. Regardless of how you feel we came to the outcome regardless of the outcome of the election, Biden is in office right now, and now what we are enduring is socialism. So there's a couple of steps that they're going to take, and I'm going to go through the first step in the first hour. May run into the second hour, but I'm also we'll talk about. I mean, we're just going to run the gamut. So what they're doing right now is they're overwhelming the system, and they're completely lying to you. The Democrat Party, in its current moderation today, are not liberals. They're not moderate. These are far left-wing radicals, and unfortunately, far too many low information voters have been listening to CNN. They've been listening to MSNBC. They've been reading places like Vox and the New York Times and Slate and getting their information from there, not realizing that these people are just totally deceived when it comes to when it comes to socialism and what it does. And they've been ushering many people sadly into this this love affair with socialism, with greed and envy, and meanwhile calling out people, freedom lovers that love capitalism, that love America's free market system, albeit it's more of a mixed economy because we have so many social welfare programs, but nonetheless, we still have a partial free market economy, and the left is trying to totally destroy that. And many of you have bought into that hook, line, and sinker. So we're going to talk about how they're trying to overwhelm the system. We see it in the healthcare system. North Carolina, as a matter of fact, they're firing 175 workers. Just ask yourself, why would the hospital system do that? Fire 175 workers, fire these people. That it's happened. The same thing is happening in New York where they're being suspended. Why would they allow this to happen knowing that it'll overwhelm the system? They say they might bring some foreigners in. They'll bring in the National Guard that is in New York. But the goal is for them to overwhelm the system. It makes no sense to take nurses and or doctors out of the hospital when they've endured the pandemic for virtually 18 months or so. Now all of a sudden we want to just get rid of them if they're not vaccinated. Never mind natural immunity. Something is wrong with that. And then we reached Biden broke another record today. And I mean, honestly, we're looking at close or encroaching upon 1.7 million people, not quite there, that have that our Border Patrol agents have encountered thus far this year while Biden has been in office. This is staggering. They expect another, 10,000 or so within the next couple of days. So our borders are being overrun. And then you have this stimulus package or this reconciliation bill of $3.5 trillion, totally separate from the $1.2 trillion infrastructure deal, which is a bad deal too. I'm so sick and tired of people hearing, well, if they take the lesser number, Republicans will go along. We had the 19 Republicans that went along to help pass the $1.2 trillion bill in the Senate. It hasn't passed in the House. The far left-wing radicals are putting up a fight on that, and I'm actually thankful for that, because that too, despite the number, will fundamentally transform America. So we'll get into that as well. We also have the RNC that's joining the Vermont GOP to sue cities over charter changes, giving voting rights to, you guessed it, illegal aliens. But I want to prove that these people are liars. So we've already proved that they just lie when it comes to God. The Democrat Party, and the way that it exists today, they will lie, cheat and steal whatever they have to do to get your vote. They don't mean what they say. In the second hour, we're going to be talking to you about how they're destroying academia. We have Gavin Newsom. We have this guy, Terry McAuliffe, running for governor in Virginia. And just listen. You listen to what they want to do with the educational system. Listen to what Gavin Newsom is already doing to the educational system in California. It is completely and utterly insane. The third hour, we're going to have Rebecca Walser on, and she's a financial and wealth management guru. She's going to talk to us about the supply chain shipment problems that we're having. about the $600, you know, the government is going to start, the IRS is going to start spying on you. You got $600. Listen, in your bank account. So they're coming after you as well. These people are complete and utter liars. Listen to this. Hat tip. A report from Congress's nonpartisan scorekeeper for tax policy reveals that the Democrats' pending tax bill will raise taxes on the middle class, breaking one of Biden's key campaign promises. Oh, there we go. I'm sure none of us are surprised about that Biden lied yet once again. The left always does this. They always tell you that the rich have to pay their fair share. The rich have to pay their fair share. Of course, they can never tell you what the rich's fair share is while they get rich in Washington, D.C., while they make trades and investments to pad their investment funds and their bank accounts, stuff that, you know, we would go to jail for. They get wealthy up there, you know, like Biden and like Hunter Biden. It's astounding what's going on. But these people lie to you all the time. Here's what you have to understand. If you're a low information voter, here's what you have to get. Here's what you have to understand. There aren't enough rich people in the United States for them to be able to pay for all this spending that they want to do. And I'm speaking of the Democrat Party. There aren't enough rich people. I mean, yes, you got the billionaires, you got the Zuckerbergs, you got, who's the Tesla guy? God, I forget his name. Thank you. Elon Musk. I mean, you got these guys. You got Jack Dorsey of Twitter. You know, you got Jeff Bezos of Amazon. You got Oprah Winfrey. You know, you got billionaires out there. But put up two hands and count them. I'm sure there's more, obviously. I'm sure there's more. But the point is, there's not a lot of buku rich people out there to tax. So they're going to have to go back and tax you. How much time do we have, Sean? Oh, thank you. Okay. So a $2.9 trillion tax hike would raise the income tax, the corporate tax, in order to fund the Democrats' pending $3.5 trillion social welfare bill. Indeed, the Joint Committee on Taxation, composed of 5 members from the House Ways and Means Committee and 5 members from the Senate Finance Committee, confirmed that in the long term, it's not going to be the top 1% that's going to get taxed with this bill. It's going to be 85% of us. These fools in Washington, D.C. are lying to your face, and you keep voting for them, thinking they love you, thinking they care about you. They hate you. They will use you just as they're doing. When we dive deeper into socialism, I will explain to you how they use this nonsense in order to keep you impoverished. They do not want you to succeed. That is not their modus operandi. Nearly 5% of taxpayers earning between $40,000 and $50,000 will be taxed. 9% of those earning $50,000 to $75,000. 18% of those earning $75,000 to $100,000. 35% earning $100,000 to $200,000. Do those sound like billionaires? It's insane.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Barack Hussein Obama announces a trade. Now, it's not a trade for Brett Favre from the Falcons to the Packers. It wasn't a trade of Bill Russell to some no-namers. It wasn't a trade of some musical for Babe Ruth. No. It was a trade for the terrorist all-star team from Gitmo, 5 of them, the Fab Five, the killers, for a traitor. Many of you will now remember this quickly. Some of you that are younger that are listening have no memory of this. This was the famous Bo Bergdahl for Gitmo trade that happened in May of 2014.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Fiance? No, I can't be your fiance.
You're gonna go. You're gonna be my fiance, and you're gonna be the most amazing, fascinating, most successful man ever. We're only gonna be there for a few hours, eat dinner, and I promise we'll have the best breakup of all time.
My baby, my princess. Oh, yeah. Pete a little bit.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The only time you can come to Christ when the Spirit of God comes.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermanos. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking gone.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Elder Show. Listen, let me just give you this quick update. Victory smells good. I was just handed this by a colleague of mine, Nostradamus of the American Adversaries. This is to a Disney World employees, dear, in an internal email. Dear employee, with the initial vaccine requirement deadline of September 30th approaching, we wanted to update you about your request for an accommodation. Your request is currently in the review process. We want to make sure to conduct a thorough review, and while your request is being reviewed, you will not be considered to be out of compliance with the company's vaccine requirement. In other words, Disney is backing off. Disney is backing off. Their employees stood up en masse, and this is Disney's way of saying, okay, there's no date on this. They're just going to review it, so they say, and right now, none of the people are out of compliance. Employees with pending accommodation requests should continue working following the applicable health and safety protocols for their location and position. Employee relations will be in touch with you about your request. All right, so that's an internal email. Thank you, Nostradamus of the American Adversaries. All right, so let's get back to this issue. The left is trying to overwhelm the system. They want you to believe that socialism is a good thing. Socialism is not a good thing. Socialism is theft. Socialism is theft. Let me put it this way as well. Again, the fundamental question that I have for you, for those that are listening in the audience. Do you want to be somebody, or do you want to be owned by somebody? See, socialism is nothing more than slavery without the whips and the chains. It's the epitome of greed and envy. It's amazing, again, how this stuff has permeated the religious community. I hear is just as many religious folk, if you will, talking about, maybe they don't call it socialism, but they certainly support it. And they certainly, we need to redistribute, the wealth. We need to, need to make sure the rich pay their fair share and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you'll hear it. You'll hear it amongst Christians. You'll hear it amongst religious people. But socialism is theft. It's not generous. You're not generous. This false notion that you're somehow generous when you tell a person with more power, a bully, in other words, to take someone else's money to bless your life, yet you're generous somehow. This never ceases to amaze me. I've heard Christians even tout the Bible. God doesn't talk about socialism in the Bible, but I know where they get it from. We'll get to that. But socialism is nothing more than slavery without the whips and chains. Socialism is the epitome of greed. It's the epitome of greed. Ask yourself this. Who owns your time? Who owns your time? You guys, I'm sure we've all heard these arguments. Self-care is, or healthcare is a right. Healthcare is a right. We all deserve healthcare. Now, I know we would all like healthcare, and I really want everyone to have healthcare. But healthcare isn't a right if it means you get to take someone else's time out of their life. So if a doctor goes to school for 12 years, a nurse goes to school for 2 or 4 years, and they have continued education, you don't have a right. You don't have a right to that time. You didn't make that investment. Being able to have a healthcare system like we had, I think our healthcare system is falling down. Obamacare has virtually, in my opinion, Obamacare is slowly destroying our healthcare system. We would have been much better off just keeping the free market healthcare that we had, where there was more competition. Open up, allow insurance agencies to go across state lines so everybody has to compete, and all of a sudden poor people could say, oh, you know what? I'm not paying $150 a month for your plan when X and Y company over here is only going to charge me $25 with a $15 copay. It's sad, but this is where we at. Who owns your time? You do not have a right to tell me what I should do with my time, nor do I have that right. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder. We'll be back in a few.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand
understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 US bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEAls. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right, welcome back to the Larry Elder Show. The number to call in, 888-971-7243. Let me talk to you about Cry Macho. Warner Brothers Pictures presents Cry Macho. From legendary director Clint Eastwood comes a story of being lost and found. Eastwood returns as a one-time rodeo star and a washed-up horse breeder who takes a job to bring back a man's young son home from Mexico. The unlikely pair face an unexpectedly challenging journey. The only road home is through redemption. See it in theaters and on HBO Max for 31 days. It's playing now. Rated PG-13, may be unsuitable for audiences under the age of 13. So Milton Friedman had said a couple of things. Had tipped Sean here. It's a good point. If you can spend, when it comes to socialism, you can spend your own money, or four different ways to spend money is what this column is entitled. You can spend your own money on yourself. And if you spend your own money on yourself, you're very careful on what you spend it on. You make sure you get the most for your dollar. Makes sense. You can spend your own money on someone else. So when you spend your own money on someone else, you're careful on not spending too much. You don't worry as much about the gifts you buy for other people as the things that you buy for yourself. That's human nature. That's true. Third thing, you can spend somebody else's money on yourself. You're careful to get good things for the money, but you're not very worried about getting the best bang for your buck. You're happier to spend more of somebody else's money within reason. So that was a third thing. You can spend somebody else's money on yourself. Now, you can spend somebody else's money on somebody else. That's wealth redistribution. He says you become a distributor of welfare funds. You're interested in making your own life as good as you can, but you're not going to be anywhere near as careful as spending this money on other people. This is common sense. This is what, sad to say, more voters in the United States seem to lack. And the Democrats are taking advantage of low information voters. People that won't study facts, won't study up on socialism, or quite frankly, that are just plain greedy themselves, that are envious. They look at the man in the nice car driving by in the Porsche, or maybe it's a classic, and then they're mad. They see him in the big house, or her in the big house, and I wonder what they did to get there. Instead of saying, you know what do I need to do to get there? This is the society that the left has created. They talk about the rich and the wealthy being greedy and envious. Well, the way the vast majority of rich people get rich is they work their butts off to get there. The vast majority of people in America, the vast majority of millionaires in America are self-made. It's astounding. But somehow socialism isn't, capitalism is selfish and socialism isn't. I want to play some audio clips for you, and then we'll get into this even deeper. And then I do want to go back to these stories. I need to make sure I get into these stories tonight. How the RNC is joining the Vermont GOP to sue cities over charter changes, giving voting rights to non-citizens. I told you. The left is importing Democrats. That is what they've been hoping for. That is what they're doing, to overwhelm the system. So we all are going to have equal misery spread around the country. Let's play audio clip. This is Nancy Pelosi. She thinks we need to improve capitalism. Here's Nancy Pelosi.
But I can say in America, capitalism is our system. It is our economic system, but it has not served our economy as well as it should. And so what we want to do is not depart from that, but to improve it and to make sure that it serves. Adam Smith wrote 2 books. He wrote Wealth of Nations, and then he wrote another book about principles and the rest, about how in an economy, in a society, how to meet the needs of people. Now, he wasn't doing it really from compassion, but from practicality. So you cannot have a system where the success of some springs from the exploitation of the workers and springs from the exploitation of the environment and the rest. And we have to correct that.
Liar. I wish her dentures would fall out every time she lies. What a complete and utter liar. What a complete and utter liar. I've just read you what's going to happen. This liar is still perpetrating this lie that the rich are going to have to pay their fair share. You know, the rich people like her. The rich people like her whose husband made he made a buttload of money this year investing in things that they knew were coming down the pike. Stuff that we would get, jailed for, insider trading. This lady is so out of touch with the average American. It is unreal. It is unbelievable. Yet somehow, she knows best. But I just told you it's a complete and utter lie. With this bill that they want to, this reconciliation bill that they'd like to pass, it doesn't look like it's going to happen, thank God. But with this bill, inside of this bill, 5% of taxpayers, again, just to reiterate, 5% of the taxpayers earning $40,000 to $50,000 are going to have a significant tax hike. 9% of those earning 50 to 70,000 are going to have a significant tax hike. 18% of those earning 75 to 100,000 are going to have a significant tax hike. 35% of those earning 100 grand to 200 grand, a significant tax hike. Remember $400,000? Remember those numbers? The rich paying their fair share? 59% of those earning between 200,000 and 500,000. So this liar, this Nancy Pelosi, this drunk comes to you and says we need to improve capitalism while her cronies in Washington, D.C. get richer. That's all they do. The Democratic lawmakers are marketing this thing as an attempt to make the wealthy Americans pay their fair share. The truth is, this is going to fall on the middle class by hiking taxes up 95% for the average American. She's a liar.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I would like my fellow conservatives, the majority of whom wanted to leave Afghanistan, to be as intellectually honest as I demand the left is. You must say, I am for the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. If you do not say that, you are a conservative who is not being honest. You cannot say, I am for leaving Afghanistan, but I am against the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. Then you are deluding yourself, and a conservative should never do that. That should be the monopoly of the left. It's equivalent to men give birth, okay? To deny that the Taliban, that you are giving Afghanistan over to the Taliban if you leave.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Talk to our millions of listeners across the country about your plans for Afghanistan, the conditions-based withdrawal, and what we have witnessed, the disaster we've witnessed in the last 3 weeks.
Maybe the greatest, most embarrassing disaster we've ever witnessed in our country. The difference was almost, first of all, it was the opposite. It was the exact opposite. We knocked out ISIS. When I took over, ISIS was all over the Middle East. We knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. I notice now they call it ISIS-K, so you'll explain that. But we knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. We took out al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
You know that friend from back in the day. Everybody has that friend. You know, it's sad, but you can conjure up his or her image right now. You can go back 20, 30, 40 years, maybe fewer years for some of you out there, but everybody has that friend from back in the day that never had money when you went out. It's always like, man, how come you never have money? We get someplace and then you just expect me to pay. That's the federal government. That's who the federal government is. They don't have anything unless they take it from us first. They always expect us to pay for their mistakes. We'll take a couple of calls before we end this hour. Let's go to Ken in Oakland, California. Ken, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. You got the mic.
You call. I just wanted to say you were talking about them lying, and you know they really do. You know, Joe Biden, I heard him say a couple of times, the most important thing to him is protecting the American people. That's the biggest lie I've heard him tell, because he lets in people with COVID from Mexico and all these other countries. He destroys jobs. He's going to tax us to death. You're absolutely right, Charles. Everything you say, you really do your homework, because everything you say, I know it to be true, and I just love the job you're doing. Thank you, Carl, so much.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate you being out there. Let's take another call. Let's go to Terry in Greenwood, South Carolina. Terry, you've got the mic. You got a minute. Welcome to the Larry Elder Show.
Hey, how are you? I just wanted to call and ask one question. I have to go to work every day. I'm a nurse. I had to get the COVID vaccine because I'm a nurse, and I have to still wear a face mask. But we have a whole slew of federal workers in Washington that are still working from home because it's safe for them to be there. Why? Why do I have to go get a vaccine, and why do I have to wear a face mask to see you as a patient, but their tail-ends cannot get their butts back to work and do their job?
I am so glad that you asked this question, Terry. I want you to understand, Dennis Prager wrote a column called the dress rehearsal for the police state, or what have you. I believe this is dress rehearsal for socialized medicine. I believe this is what this is. I think it's preparing politicians, bullying the healthcare industry. That, listen, you're going to listen to you're going to listen to we the politicians, if you will. You're not going to have any power. This is very disconcerting. This is very scary to me. But I'm being honest. This is what's happening. They want socialism in all facets, especially healthcare. We'll be back on the other side.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I had with my producer prior to coming on just now, I said that either of my children could have done better, and then he said, your grandchildren, who are 10 and 5. It's hard to imagine. I think the 10-year-old could have managed it better. However, I do want to say something. I was listening to Tucker Carlson, for whom I have great respect, and he had what is the woman's name again? Lara Logan, for whom I also have great respect. And she was on, and she was saying, opposing the way in which we exited or are exiting Afghanistan does not mean that one opposes exiting Afghanistan. They're two separate issues. Well, they are. They are two separate issues. However, I would like my fellow conservatives, the majority of whom wanted to leave Afghanistan, to be as intellectually honest as I demand the left is. You must say, I am for the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. If you do not say that, you are a conservative who is not being honest. You cannot say, I am for leaving Afghanistan, but I am against the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. Then you are deluding yourself, and a conservative should never do that. That should be the monopoly of the left. It's equivalent to men give birth. Okay?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Vice President Kamala Harris is learning the hard way you can run, but you can't hide over your administration's disaster in Afghanistan. There she is over in Singapore being asked about this crisis. Americans being stranded, as Newt Gingrich put it this week. We've surrendered to the Taliban, essentially, and now we're trying to negotiate the terms of the surrender. And Politico national security reporter Alex Ward released leaked U.S. State Department evacuation numbers from Kabul, Afghanistan. According to Ward, we evacuated a total of 6,916 people from the country. Of those, only 483 were Americans. The vast majority of evacuees were Afghan nationals. So we're airlifting Afghan nationals out of Afghanistan, which leads the White House press secretary to describe that as a complete success. I mean, unreal. I want you to hear Jen Psaki. This is pretty amazing. Cut number 7. Responding to Peter Doocy, who is her constant foil, this is a success.
Is there any concern that maybe trying to reach this deadline and get everybody out, mistakes are being made now that there is a report that at least one of the Afghans evacuated to Qatar has suspected ISIS ties?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
The Arizona Supreme Court said Tuesday that contractors hired by the state Senate to conduct the audit would not need to release the records from their review by next week. This is only a temporary delay, is what we're being told. A left-wing watchdog group, American Oversight, took its record request to the court and emerged victorious when the Arizona Court of Appeals ruled that Cyber Ninjas, the Florida-based firm leading the audit, was subject to state public records law because it was performing a core government function. Arizona President Karen Fann argued the records should not be publicly released because they're maintained by private contractors, so legislative immunity applies to the documents. It is ordered extending the stay to enable the court to fully consider the issues raised in the petition for review. American Oversight's suit is not the only one leveled against the Arizona Senate. The Phoenix-based Arizona Republic newspaper sued the chamber and Cyber Ninjas on June 30th for access to the host of audit records under the same public records law. Of course, the Arizona Republic is suing. I mean, why would they be reporting? They would be suing people to try to stop the audit. The audit results are coming out soon, despite all of these legal challenges against it. We don't know what it's going to say, but I could tell you that people are very nervous that what might be implemented from, what actually might be exposed from these audit results are going to be significant, very significant. We know that there were 72,000 more mail-in ballots received than were sent out. We know that this election was interfered with in many different ways, from the Center for Technology of Civic Life, from Mark Zuckerberg's money, and many other people.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime.
I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Fiance? No, I can't be your fiance.
You're gonna go. You're gonna be my fiance, and you're gonna be the most amazing, fascinating, most successful man ever. We're only gonna be there for a few hours, eat dinner, and I promise we'll have the best breakup of all time.
My baby, my princess. Oh, yeah. Beat a little bit.
stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right, welcome back to the Larry Elder Show. Just some breaking news. Taliban is demanding that the U.S. stop flying drones over Afghanistan. Why wouldn't they? We've got probably the weakest or amongst the weakest presidents we've ever had in American history in the White House. Also, Democrats have an amnesty Hail Mary. They want to halt deportations by paroling illegal aliens. I'm not sure exactly what that's about. I'll look into that a little later. But what we're doing is talking about socialism versus capitalism and how the left is trying to destroy the country. And many people just simply don't get it. When you look at California, do you realize that California is home to approximately 50% of the entire nation's welfare recipients? One state. California is just going down the drain. I mean, literally, I feel like California, God sent Larry Elder to California to run for that race. And the vast majority of Californians said, no, better schools, not for me. Fewer fires, not for me. Better water or water reservation, saving water, not for me. More housing or more affordable housing for people, not for me. COVID that won't be around forever, at least, I mean, it's endemic at this point, right? Oh, we're going to stick with greasy Gavin Newsom. And as a result, I mean, this guy is just going all out. And I'll get into this shortly. So Newsom signed a bill allowing minors to hide abortions and their gender-affirming health care from their parents. Honestly, Californians, you get what you deserve. You get what you deserve. You guys made a foolish mistake. It's just insane. It's just insane. All right. But I told you what the left is trying to do is overwhelm the system, and we got more audio clips for you as well. But the RNC joins Vermont GOP to sue cities over charter changes giving voting rights to non-citizens. The Republican National Committee announced on Tuesday, that they have partnered with the Vermont GOP to sue the cities of Montpelier and Winooski, Vermont. What is it? Montpelier and Winooski, Vermont, over Newtown charters allowing non-citizens to vote in their municipal elections. The RNC described the charters as part of a radical scheme passed by Vermont Democrats to allow foreign citizens, illegal aliens, to decide American elections is a blatant attack on election integrity and violates the state constitution, which requires Vermont voters to be U.S. citizens. I think that's in every state constitution. But the left is going to try to do away with this. And for all of you that are in the middle class, all of you blue collar workers, over 1.6 million people encountered at the border so far this year under this feckless weak Joe Biden in the White House. Over 1.6 million. This is unreal. This is absolutely unreal. The Vermont State Senate approved changes to the city's charters in May, prompting a number of concerns from Republicans about how the laws will be implemented and whether non-citizens will end up on the same voter registration list used for state level and federal elections, the release said. It's amazing to me. Democrats are trying to dismantle the integrity of our elections. This, according to RNC Chairman Ronna McDaniel. In addition to attacking widely supported safeguards like voter ID, Democrats also want foreign citizens to vote in American elections. Republicans are fighting back on this far left assault against election integrity. Unlike radical Democrats, she says, we believe that our elections should be decided solely by American citizens. This is a matter of principle, and we will fight in all 50 states to ensure this remains the case. See, the left can't win unless they cheat. The left can't win unless they change the rules as we go. There are a couple of callers on the line I was just about to get to, and then they go. I wanted to speak to the guy that says we need a mixed system. No, we don't. We don't need a mixed system. We want a mixed system. That's why it's there. We don't need it. If people knew how to handle money, if we did a better job of teaching economics in our high school, and honestly, it needs to go all the way to, in my opinion, all the way back to elementary school. If we taught people how to fundamentally save and spend, invest their money, you wouldn't need that, but we want that. And unfortunately, our big government is growing just larger and larger. But that's one story. That's one story. So they want to overwhelm the system. That's why I'm telling you, the left, they don't care about these open borders. I mean, they care if attention comes to the open borders because they don't want Biden's polls to continue sinking. But the more the merrier as far as they're concerned. If they can turn every state, including red states, into California, why not? Why not? These people that are in charge are going to get their money. They're going to be able to live these lavish lifestyles. All of us little peasants will get to work for them. Why not? You know, speaking of work for them, this is one thing that always frustrates me with people of faith when they try to say that socialism is biblical. Socialism, Christians should buy into this. People of faith should buy into this. It's the nice thing to do. First off, one reason why socialism will never work and why it never works, because we always assume the men that are in charge are more moral than we are. That's the dumbest thing ever. I've come to the conclusion, listen, everybody's got a little evil in them, all right? The reason why we go to church is because people need, church is like a hospital, right? You just go there to repair your soul. And it's not a one-day fix. Sometimes you got to go back. Sometimes you got to repent. You know, so, I mean, you constantly go in order to become a better person, in order to get closer to God, Jesus Christ, for me. But the church is a hospital in and of itself. But it always amazes me because people of faith constantly get it wrong. Plenty of people that I know that love Christ, but they get it wrong. When the Bible says, if a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. Who's right? Who's right? See, this is why we can't remove God from society. Even if you're a secularist, even if you're an atheist, you have to understand we can't remove God from society. Because when we remove God from society, anything goes. Moral relativism reigns. We can't have that. You have to have objective truth in order to have a civil society. In 2 Thessalonians 3:10, the Bible says, if a man will not work, he shall not eat. So who's right? Is AOC right? Is Bernie Sanders right? Are the Democratic left right by wanting to just pass out welfare all the time? Who's right? See, because the question that the left is constantly asking you or telling you or demanding that you determine is who God is. Is government God or is God God? This is something, it just baffles me. And then the leftists claim that capitalism and acquiring wealth and private property encourages greed and envy, but government ownership somehow removes that temptation. Government ownership somehow removes that temptation. Again, as if these people that we elect are somehow more moral than we are, than we the people, are holier than thou, are holier than us, just because we elected them. It's silly. It shows you that most Americans, I think, and people of faith, are just not trained to think critically and clearly. Because this is completely juvenile. This is completely asinine to me. I can tell you exactly where Christians go wrong. They go wrong by reading Acts 2:44 through 45 out of context. I'll get into that next, and we got plenty of more. And you can call in 888-971-7243. I was just getting ready to go to some of you, and then you hung up.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime.
I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 US bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families through an unlikely alliance between the Chinese government and a British footballer. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. With unprecedented access across the country, this is a unique insight into the lives of the 90s orphans now driving the 21st century's fastest growing economy. This story needs to be told across the world. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right, welcome back to the Larry Elder Show. The number to call in to the ReliefFactor.com studio, 888-971-7243. Socialism versus capitalism. We're having that debate. We're having that talk. I want to play some audio clips, some more audio clips for you, and we'll get further. Listen, we're going to be kicking socialism's butt for the entire show. Pretty soon we're going to get into the Virginia governor saying that parents have no business in what schools teach. And I've officially decided that Greasy Gavin Newsom is a pervert, and he definitely does deserve that moniker of Greasy. Because when I tell you about and go into the details of this bill that he has signed allowing minors to be able to hide abortions and gender affirming health care from parents, this is insane. I'm not sure if the nurse that called in the last hour realizes just how important her call was. Because her call is illustrative of what the left wants to do, and that's to crush us all under their feet. They want to crush this medical industry. There's a lot of smart doctors, smart nurses, but gullible and naive as heck when it comes to what the left is really attempting to do. I mean, they're busy, they're working, they're trying to save lives and all this kind of stuff. But honestly, I don't think I'm alone in this when I say our healthcare industry wasn't what it was before Obamacare. They intentionally tried to change the mindset of our healthcare workers. Eventually, slowly but surely, trying to train them mentally to get away from this Hippocratic oath. And it's working for probably 50% of them. It's sad what's happening to the medical industry. It really is sad. I want to play another couple of clips for you. Let's play. This is Bono. Listen, Bono, I'm sorry. This is Bono. This guy is a superstar. Little liberal. Which, I mean, most of them are. Let's be honest. But he's traveled the world over. He doesn't want to admit that capitalism works better. Listen to this clip.
So some of Africa is rising, and some of Africa is stuck. The question is whether the rising bit will pull the rest of Africa up, or whether the other Africa will weigh the continent down. Which will it be? Stakes here aren't just about them. Imagine for a second this last global recession, but without the economic growth of China and India, without the hundreds of millions of newly minted middle-class folks who now buy American and European goods. Imagine that. Think about the last 5 years. Rockstar preaches capitalism. Wow. Sometimes I hear myself and I just can't believe it. But commerce is real. That's what you're about here. It's real. Aid is just a stopgap. Commerce, entrepreneurial capitalism takes more people out of poverty than aid. Of course we know that. Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. And again, let me reiterate the numbers yet again. Democrats are lying about this tax bill. They're lying to you. They're lying to you poor folks. They're lying to those of us that are in the middle class. Everyone's going to pay severely. Their goal is to crush you. They have no power, unless you're impoverished. Democrats are successful. I want you to remember this. Democrats are successful when you are unsuccessful. Democrats, say it with me now. Democrats are successful when you are unsuccessful. That's the only way they remain in power. And they know it. That's why when they say the rich are going to pay their fair share, I can go back to the Daily Wire and find out the breakdown that 5% of taxpayers earning between $40,000 to $50,000 are going to get taxed big time. 9% of those earning between $50,000 to $75,000 taxed big time. 18% of those earning $75,000 to $100,000 taxed big time. 35% of those earning between $100,000 to $200,000 taxed big time. 59% of those earning between $200,000 to $500,000 taxed big time. Overwhelmingly, their bill is a tax on the middle class, and they lie to your face every single day. Every single day. Every single day. It's astonishing to me. It's astonishing to me. It really is a matter of choosing your God, government or God. It really is a matter of that. This is absolutely astounding. All right. Number to call in, 888-971-7243. 888-971-7243. This is Carl Jackson sitting in for Larry Elder in the ReliefFactor.com studio. Again, the leftists claim that capitalism and acquiring wealth in private property encourages greed and envy, but government ownership doesn't. So let me ask you this question. You mean to tell me that crumb snatchers that want what I worked hard for aren't greedy? Speaking of that, Milton Friedman addressed this issue of greed in capitalism so wonderfully on the Phil Donahue show. Let's go ahead and play that audio clip. We have enough time for that? Audio clip 5.
When you see around the globe the maldistribution of wealth, the desperate plight of millions of people in underdeveloped countries, when you see so few haves and so many have-nots,
okay,
when you see the greed and the concentration of power within, did you ever have a moment of doubt about capitalism and whether greed's a good idea to run on?
Well, first of all, tell me, is there some society you know that doesn't run on greed? You think Russia doesn't run on greed? You think China doesn't run on greed? What is greed? Of course, none of us are greedy. It's only the other fellow who's greedy. The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. The great achievements of civilization have not come from government bureaus. Einstein didn't construct his theory under order from a bureaucrat. Henry Ford didn't revolutionize the automobile industry that way. In the only cases in which the masses have escaped from the kind of grinding poverty you're talking about, the only cases in recorded history are where they have had capitalism and largely free trade. If you want to know where the masses are worst off, it's exactly in the kinds of societies that depart from that. So that the record of history is absolutely crystal clear that there is no alternative way so far discovered of improving the lot of the ordinary people that can hold a candle to the productive activities that are unleashed by a free enterprise system.
But it seems to reward not virtue as much as ability to manipulate the system.
And what does reward virtue? You think the communist commissar rewards virtue? You think a Hitler rewards virtue? You think, excuse me, if you'll pardon me, do you think American presidents reward virtue? Do they choose their appointees on the basis of the virtue of the people appointed or on the basis of their political clout? Is it really true that political self-interest is nobler somehow than economic self-interest? You know, I think you're taking a lot of things for granted. And just tell me where in the world you find these angels who are going to organize society for us. Well, I don't even trust you to do that.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not. We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families through an unlikely alliance between the Chinese government and a British footballer. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. With unprecedented access across the country, this is a unique insight into the lives of the 90s orphans now driving the 21st century's fastest growing economy. This story needs to be told across the world. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Studio 888-971-7243 888-971-7243. I think where a lot of people of faith go wrong when it comes to socialism is they read this scripture, Acts 2:44-45, and it says, and all those who have believed were together and had all things in common, and they began selling their property and possessions. And a lot of Christians read through this scripture, and there's one or two others that they'll read through, but they'll read, this is the main one that they read through, and they see, we're supposed to share and give our possessions away. We're all to work together. We had all things in common. We began selling property and all this kind of stuff in order to provide for the common good, for the community. But the Bible, this is why you have to understand the Bible in its totality and read it in its totality. Because we also understand that God does care about private property. How do we know that? It's in the Ten Commandments. When he says, thou shalt not steal, that's an implication that God cares about private property. You have the right to private property. And going back to this Acts 2:44-45, most people read it out of context because what was happening were there were travelers that were coming through, I believe it was Jerusalem, coming through Jerusalem, and then the Christians that were there were helping to provide for them as they came and went on their way. And it was the people doing it. It wasn't the government. It was the people of faith that were doing it. And that's a distinguishment or a distinction that I think people of faith need to make. You need to get a study Bible and figure this stuff out. But God is a God of private property. Why do you think stealing is wrong, right? Of course it is. They don't know that in California anymore, but there's also plenty of scripture that requires restitution. Jeremiah 32, 42 through 44, Micah 4, 1 through 4, Luke 12, 13 through 15, Acts 5, 1 through 4, Ephesians 4:28. So why would scripture require restitution if God hasn't given us a right to private property? The truth is, there are a lot of low information Christians too. A lot of low information people of faith. Proverbs 10:4, lazy hands make a man poor, but diligent hands bring wealth. But the government is telling you, you don't have to work to eat. As a matter of fact, kick back and enjoy what other people are doing for you. Socialism isn't compatible with Christianity or people of faith. It's just not. It removes the responsibility that we as individuals have. This is another issue that I have. It makes people selfish. It really does. I don't count when I'm trying to. I'm not a rich man by any stretch of the imagination. I know you guys think because I'm behind this mic that I'm not. I'm not there yet. I'm working on my dream, all right? But I'm not there yet. But I do have a generous heart. I didn't always. So there's things that I'll give to within my limits. I can't afford to give a lot. But I do believe that God has called me to give. I don't rely on someone else to give to charities for me, or give to my church for me, or give to some type of ministry or whatever for me. I do it. It may only be $25. It may only be $50. Sometimes $100, sometimes more. Whatever I can afford. But I try to give generously. I give from my heart. I try to give from just a good place. But God calls us to do that. I'm just one person. But God calls us to do that. He calls us to take care of the widows, the orphans, not government. And I'm not saying there isn't a place for that. I understand that sometimes times get rough. So I'm not knocking you. But I want you to understand, please stop arguing from that perspective, especially people of faith. I'm tired of this fake generosity, taking other people's money, giving other people's money away, and pretending as if you want to pat yourself on the back as if you're generous. Socialism is theft, plain and simple. It's theft. It's theft. And the proponents of socialism, in my opinion, are so naive because they always assume that the politicians that are redistributing, the politicians that are spreading our wealth around will never succumb to greed and envy themselves, and they do all the time. Or rich people won't hide their money, or lazy people won't get even lazier and stop working, like we've seen with this now endemic, once a pandemic. What about creativity? What about productivity? When people are just getting paid to sit on their butt, they're not creative. They're not productive. We'll be back in a few.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I would like my fellow conservatives, the majority of whom wanted to leave Afghanistan, to be as intellectually honest as I demand the left is. You must say, I am for the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. If you do not say that, you are a conservative who is not being honest. You cannot say, I am for leaving Afghanistan, but I am against the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. Then you are deluding yourself, and a conservative should never do that. That should be the monopoly of the left. It's equivalent to men give birth, okay? To deny that the Taliban, that you are giving Afghanistan over to the Taliban if you leave.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
talk to our millions of listeners across the country about your plans for Afghanistan, the conditions-based withdrawal, and what we have witnessed, the disaster we've witnessed in the last 3 weeks?
Maybe the greatest, most embarrassing disaster we've ever witnessed in our country. The difference was almost, first of all, it was the opposite. It was the exact opposite. We knocked out ISIS. When I took over, ISIS was all over the Middle East. We knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. I notice now they call it ISIS-K, so you'll explain that. But we knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. We took out al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I would say that this is now on track, Peter, to be the largest airlift in U.S. history. And that is bringing American citizens out. It is bringing our Afghan partners out. It is bringing allies out. So no, I would not say that is anything but a success.
Okay.
As the kids would say, OMG. Yeah, we have an extensive vetting process. Sure we do. I've been to the border, lady. No, you don't. No, you don't. But again, back to Kamala Harris. There she is trying to escape this mess by hiding out in Singapore. But there are reporters there, too.
To that end, we have seen a successful drawdown of the embassy.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
I think this family can pick you up every time you fall.
Every time I take one step forward.
When Wright came in this morning, he wants to fight you.
No one expected this out of him.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
How is it possible that Joe Biden let this happen?
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
To call into the relieffactor.com studio, 888-971-7243, 888-971-7243. We've been talking about socialism versus capitalism and how the left, the first thing they're trying to do is just overwhelm the system. You have the RNC fighting back or joining the Vermont GOP. We talked about that briefly, to sue cities over the charter changes that are giving voting rights to illegal aliens right there in Vermont. A North Carolina hospital system is firing 175 of their workers. And again, we had a caller. They called in at the top of the last hour, and she was wondering why she had to get vaccinated in order to keep her job. And she's sitting there wondering why. And listen, it was a great call because you have to understand what the left is doing. They want the medical industry. They want complete submission of the medical industry, just like they want us to submit, whether it's the mask mandates, vaccine mandates from the job, corporate, or having corporations or telling corporations what to do with their employees. They want full compliance. And you have all of these low information voters, ignorant people, or maybe people that just think they will like socialism. It will bite us all in the butt in the end. But that are participating in this stuff, and it's crazy. Hat tip Sean McConnell, this from New York Post. A North Carolina hospital system said it has terminated about 175 workers in what has been one of the largest mass firings in the country over COVID-19 vaccine mandate compliance. Novant Health. Now, just stop and think about this for a second. So now all of a sudden, these people have been complaining about hospital shortages. Oh, COVID is spreading here. COVID is spreading there. The ICUs are overwhelmed. And now you have the Democrat Party, you have the left intentionally putting out these, they're dictates or edicts or, it's not law. But you have these corporations, you have these hospitals, dumb as all get out, following suit, knowing that these nurses and these doctors, and by the way, we had a caller last night said, why isn't this happening to doctors? It is. For whatever reason, it's not being reported as much as it should be, but it is. It's happening to doctors as well, and some doctors are choosing to quit and go elsewhere. It's insane. But this is going to ultimately lead us down the path to socialized medicine, where you're going to have too many people wanting care, not enough healthcare workers. Everything is going to become subpar. You're going to go in, clock in, and get out. Doctors and nurses won't be able to see you but for a minute. Some of them do that now. But it'll be even worse. It'll be even worse. This is what they're bracing us for. It's overwhelming the system. It's giving us a taste of what socialism would look like. They want to get us used to full compliance. Again, this from Nostradamus of the American Adversaries. This is what fighting back looks like. And I read this in the first hour. I'll read it again. This is Disney backing down because their employees in mass stood up. Dear employee, with the initial vaccine requirement deadline of September 30th approaching, we wanted to update you. That's tomorrow. Update you about your request for an accommodation. Your request is currently in the review process. We want to make sure to conduct a thorough review. And while your request is being reviewed, you will not be considered to be out of compliance with the company's vaccine requirement. Employees with pending accommodation requests should continue working following the applicable health and safety protocols for their location and position. Employee relations will be in touch with you about your request. Thanks, Disney Global Human Resources Operation. In other words, Disney is backing down. Because in this endemic, they can't afford, with the left still trying to scare people to death, they can't afford to just let go of all of these employees, retrain. I mean, it would just take a buttload of money. Retrain all of these people. It's absolutely insane. It's a little harder, I understand, at hospitals. You have a lot more skilled workers, obviously, trained workers, trained in that profession. But there's no reason to do this. This is completely asinine unless what you're doing is trying to intentionally move to socialized medicine. Embrace people for it. This is exactly what's happening. This is socialism versus capitalism. It makes no sense. These doctors, these nurses, they've been on the front line. They've been exposed to COVID. Their viral load, I guarantee our viral load cannot compare to theirs when they've been fighting this battle from day one. You don't think these people have some level of natural immunity? This makes no sense, except if you want to overwhelm the system. And that is exactly what is happening, in my opinion. This is completely crazy. Novant Health spokesperson Megan Rivers said Monday that around 200 of the 375 employees who were suspended last week over the vaccine rules had come into compliance by its Friday deadline. More than 99% of the health system employees are now compliant with the vaccine mandate, including those who have submitted an approved religious or medical vaccine exemption. The company said, I am thrilled that the vast majority of team members gave Novant Health patients and visitors, as well as our team members, better protection against COVID-19 by complying with our vaccination mandate. This is from President and CEO Carl Armato. He said this in a statement to CNN, obviously a lefty. I hope you guys find another hospital in the area. It's completely insane. It's completely insane what we're having to see, what we're having to endure, what Americans are having to endure. They're trying to brace us for socialism. And the first step is overwhelming the system in all facets. And then you have Obama urging people, urging the Senate to pass a national gun reform. The Senate needs to quell access to guns. This guy is amazing. This guy is amazing. But what do dictators do? What do tyrants do? What's the first step they must take when they want to be dictators, when they want to be tyrants? They remove the guns so that we, the people, cannot fight back against those in power. We're going to take a break, and when we do, we're going to come back with some of your calls. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder. The number to call in, 888-971-7243.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not. We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime.
I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The Democratic Party somehow has convinced black people that they're the good guys. Never mind the skanky history of the Democratic Party. That was a party of slavery.
They're racist, racist, racist. Everything's racist.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Hey, welcome back to the Larry Elder Show. The number to call in, 888-971-7243. You're not going to want to go anywhere for the third hour. We're going to have Rebecca Walser. She's a top 100 U.S. advisor, a tax attorney, wealth strategist, seen on television, Fox Business, so on, etc. You're going to want to get your Christmas shopping done early. I mean, like right now. We'll talk about that with her. Also, if you got $600 in the bank, the IRS might spy on you in the future. We'll talk about that with her as well as the budget breakdown and all this kind of stuff. So let's take a couple of calls before we go to the break. Let's go to Sally in Marin County. Sally, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. You got the mic.
Okay, I have two upsets in my head, and one of them is that Larry Elder had better be extremely proud of even trying to do with us white wimps. Wouldn't do. We were too interested in money. We didn't have the conviction of God's Spirit in our heart, and to say that he was, whatever he said about a white whatever, people are forgetting that God went to Abram back in Ur of the Chaldees, who was certainly not white or black.
You got about 30 seconds, Sally. Sally, you there?
Yeah.
We got about 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Well, you know, God is interested in every single person, regardless of where he comes from or what color he is. All we have to do is pay attention to what he says in the Bible. And it doesn't matter whether you're black or white. You've got to have the courage that Larry and all those people that backed him. I tried to send money to his campaign, and it never arrived, and I had to put a stop order. But if I knew how to get to him, I would send another check. And it's just, I think...
I'm sorry, Sally. Sally, we just for the sake of time, we got to go. I want to take one more call. I appreciate you being out there. God bless you for trying to do that. Let's go to Emily in Fort Worth, Texas. Emily, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. We've got about 50 seconds, but you got the mic.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to call because I actually recently was talking with some friends and my husband about how, like, the state of New York right now, with the state that they're in, where you can't even go to a gym or a, I don't know, supermarket without your vaccination card. And now there's all these rules of, oh, well, take away the guns. There's all these things that are starting to line up. And the American people definitely need to wake up and remember what our history has been through. Otherwise, it's going to repeat itself. And we have to do something, and we have to do something now.
Yeah, you know what, Emily, it may be just what Sally said earlier. It's standing up as individuals. And then courage is infectious. It's contagious. So hopefully more people will stand up around us. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder. We'll be back on the other side.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
I think this is a crisis that we haven't faced since 9/11. I think it's worse than 9/11 because we ran towards the danger and tried to save people, then now we're abandoning them. Is the president going to stick with this?
It seems like the president is doubling down. And what is shocking to me, we had a brief with Secretary Blinken, Secretary Austin, General Milley, etc. And there was very strong bipartisan pushback on the August 31st deadline. In fact, some of the strongest statements pushing back on that came from my Democratic colleagues, particularly those who are veterans who've served in Afghanistan and in uniform in other parts of the world, were very forceful in telling the administration to their face that this is a disaster. And I think there was a recognition by the administration that we can't get all of our people, let alone the thousands of SIV applicants out. And yet a few hours later, the president of the United States went on TV and doubled down on the August 31st deadline, which is completely arbitrary, or let me rather say is solely intended to get us out before September 11th, 2021. And as we've discussed before, Hugh, whoever in the White House decided it would be a good idea to try and get everyone out by September 11th, 2021, and thinking that that would be some positive PR win for the United States should be fired, because that's a huge, huge propaganda win for the Taliban.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Mr. President, the lying legacy media is supporting the Biden administration narrative that this is your plan, this is what you would have done. It is clear you've just communicated you had a conditions-based withdrawal plan. You would have kept Bagram. What would you be doing right now if you were the commander-in-chief? If one U.S. citizen were hurt in Afghanistan, what would your response be, and how would you use our special forces?
Well, we're in a much worse position right now than we were. When I had it, it was absolutely, we had it so locked down, we would have been able to leave so easily. And so, I mean, it would have just been a beautiful process. And then the only question was probably you bomb the bases, because why should we give those bases to others? So we would bomb the hell out of the bases, the various bases, other than Bagram, which we would have kept. But if you think about it, how can it be worse? So now it's a much more difficult position because they have thousands of hostages, American hostages. You know, Jimmy Carter had a small number of hostages. Now they have thousands of American hostages, so it's much different. I would absolutely have a plan, but I don't want to say what the plan is because I think it would be inappropriate.
But the idea that you would be taking orders from the Taliban like Joe Biden is?
Ridiculous, because I dealt with Abdul and everybody else, and we were totally in charge. And they would have never come in. They wouldn't have even tried to come into Kabul, even though Ghani, I always said he's a crook, 100% crooked, a bad leader, but a crooked guy. And he had the United States Senate wrapped around his finger. That was his only strength.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I had with my producer prior to coming on just now, I said that either of my children could have done better, and then he said, your grandchildren, who are 10 and 5. It's hard to imagine. I think the 10-year-old could have managed it better. However, I do want to say something. I was listening to Tucker Carlson, for whom I have great respect, and he had what is the woman's name again? Lara Logan, for whom I also have great respect. And she was on, and she was saying, opposing the way in which we exited or are exiting Afghanistan does not mean that one opposes exiting Afghanistan. They're two separate issues. Well, they are. They are two separate issues. However, I would like my fellow conservatives, the majority of whom wanted to leave Afghanistan, to be as intellectually honest as I demand the left is. You must say, I am for the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. If you do not say that, you are a conservative who is not being honest. You cannot say, I am for leaving Afghanistan, but I am against the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. Then you are deluding yourself, and a conservative should never do that. That should be the monopoly of the left. It's equivalent to men give birth. Okay?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Vice President Kamala Harris is learning the hard way you can run, but you can't hide over your administration's disaster in Afghanistan. There she is over in Singapore being asked about this crisis. Americans being stranded, as Newt Gingrich put it this week. We've surrendered to the Taliban, essentially, and now we're trying to negotiate the terms of the surrender. And Politico national security reporter Alex Ward released leaked U.S. State Department evacuation numbers from Kabul, Afghanistan. According to Ward, we evacuated a total of 6,916 people from the country. Of those, only 483 were Americans. The vast majority of evacuees were Afghan nationals. So we're airlifting Afghan nationals out of Afghanistan, which leads the White House press secretary to describe that as a complete success. I mean, unreal. I want you to hear Jen Psaki. This is pretty amazing. Cut number 7. Responding to Peter Doocy, who is her constant foil. This is a success.
Is there any concern that maybe trying to reach this deadline and get everybody out, mistakes are being made now that there is a report that at least one of the Afghans evacuated to Qatar has suspected ISIS ties?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
On the Border Patrol agents some are going to be fired for refusing the COVID jab. As illegals are pouring through the border, some just straight up, just saying, no, we're not going to take this vaccine. This is unbelievable. But again, they're trying to overwhelm the system. Speaking of overwhelming the system, Rebecca Walser is a top 100 U.S. advisor, a tax attorney, a wealth strategist, a certified financial planner. Man, Rebecca, you must get tired. You do too much.
True.
Listen, I was with Rebecca at an event in Tampa. When was that? I'm losing track of days. Was that?
It was last Thursday.
Okay, so last Thursday, and we were on the stage with Mike Gallagher and Alfredo Ortiz of the Job Creators Network, and then Rebecca started talking about actually several things. She is a wealth and financial guru, if you will. She started talking about how the IRS is going to track our bank transactions over $600 or under $600. So I want to talk about that, Rebecca. And then you started saying, sure, you better start shopping early for Christmas. Let's start with the $600 Biden plan, if you will. And then let's talk about Christmas, why we better start shopping like right now.
Yeah. Well, with a proposal to spend $3.5 trillion on quote, quote, infrastructure, that you're going to need to raise some revenue. There's going to be a revenue raise in there somewhere, even though I know Biden tweeted out this week that it would cost absolutely nothing. I don't understand. I mean, and it's for Larry's listeners, Carl, that, understand the detail of it. When you do something through reconciliation, you have to balance it. So whatever you spend, you have to cut the exact same amount on the offsetting side in order for it to be a net zero. So Biden, when he tweeted that, he was referring to the fact that in order to pass something through budget reconciliation, they have to likewise cut $3.5 trillion of spending and or raise $3.5 trillion of spending to make it a net zero so it can be passed through reconciliation. So people don't know that. So they see this tweet from this guy and they say, oh, he says it's going to cost nothing. So we might as well just go ahead and spend $3.5 trillion and this is all just great. So one of the revenue raises, Carl, that this administration is putting out there is they are saying that, and it's already really been shot down by even their own party. Their own party realizes how absolutely, totally over the edge this is. But what Biden proposed was that U.S. banks would report automatically all of your transactions individually to who they were to that were $600 or more, and that they would summary report every year how much total deposits and total withdrawals are made by account both personal and business.
Okay, so first off, this is insane. This is spying.
Yes.
But
yes.
Beyond that, how do we even have the resource? We don't even have the resources to make this happen. It's insane.
They're proposing a massive budget increase for the IRS for compliance and control of our finances. And instead of becoming a voluntary tax return set up an establishment that we've been in our entire lifetime. And it's voluntary. You can pay criminal charges and go to jail if you don't comply. So most people voluntarily comply with our tax system, and they voluntarily report. And we haven't had to have the Gestapo running the enforcement division. But when you start becoming a socialistic country and you start spending $8 trillion when your market crashes because you automatically shut down and healthy people and shut the economy down for the first time in the history of recorded time, when you do things like this and that causes you to spend $8 trillion so that you keep at bay a depression, and then that opens up the floodgates from heaven where people say, oh, $8 trillion is nothing. We can handle this. And then your next thing you know, the very next administration is coming into power and saying, we want to pass $4.5 trillion out of the gate.
Right. Yeah, this is my fear. Honestly, Rebecca, even going back to this $1.2 trillion bipartisan deal that the Senate passed, and I'm hoping that both of them crash, quite frankly. But I look at this stuff and I'm like, it baffles me that Republicans participate in this nonsense and these endless continuing, what are they? Continuing resolutions? Like, when was the last time we've had an annual budget? We constantly live in this state of fear where it's, oh my God, a shutdown, a shutdown, a shutdown. And it just allows the government, both sides, to just spend our money like crazy.
Yes, and it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse, Carl, because if you look at the news out today, you saw that the UK has announced they're going to digital currency. And this has already happened the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, month in China. So what you're starting to see so fast, these things are now coming so fast. So fast, Carl. What you're starting to see is the push now to go completely digital. And once you go completely digital, you have to start to ask yourself, what is the difference between U.S. digital currency and UK digital currency and Chinese digital currency? In other words, what I'm saying is, once you're completely digital, there is no steps in between that and moving to one world currency.
Wow, that's very depressing. Thanks for that, Rebecca. You know,
so sorry.
No,
I'm just
honestly,
saying, these are things we have to care about.
That's why you're here. What do you? Okay, so Sean McConnell just shared this column with me. Now, this is going to depress some people, but the Dollar Tree is going up in price. Biden inflation is absolutely hitting everywhere. What do people do? How do we protect ourselves? I mean, I seriously, I'm at a loss here.
It's funny because, I made this point last Thursday. I was talking about how Powell and, if you look in globally, Christine Lagarde is basically saying inflation is transitory. And I said last Thursday, it's funny because I can say something's transitory because no one will know I was wrong until we realize it wasn't, right? It's something that you can easily cast off and say. It's something you can easily say. But literally within the last 3 hours, because of Jerome Powell's testimony this week, the last 3 hours, we just got Market Watch coming out saying sudden realization that inflation may persist is starting to dawn on many U.S. investors. So we're starting to get the clue that, wow, you know what? You can't spend $8 trillion, in less than 2 years and not have 40% of it end up in the market, which is exactly what's happened. We're about 40% off of our high before the virus. We have no economic fundamentals to support that. We have over 10 million job openings that nobody's going back to work because between Biden's AFP plan that was passed in March of this year, where they give $300 per child for up to 4 children under the age of 19. You have that plus the federal bump up that just ended in September 6th of this month. You have so much money going to people now in this administration, intentionally getting them just enough to get out of poverty and survive without working, but never going and growing as God intended us all to do, to be our best version of ourselves, whatever we choose to do, and honor Him throughout our lives. People are never going to do that if they're just barely outside of poverty. And that's what these, tenants of this administration are doing. Get as many people at home on the government dole, because then they will vote the way we want. They will act the way they will want. They will do what we want. We'll have a majority forever. This will no longer be a democracy. It will be socialism, and that will be the end of it.
Rebecca, listen, we have 30 minutes before the break. Or 30 seconds, I'm sorry. It's 40 seconds before the break. Can you stick with me through the break, or do you need to go?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool.
I'll stick with you.
All right, so we're speaking with Rebecca Walser, and she is a financial guru, so that's why we have her on, because listen, we are in cray-cray world when it comes to Bidenflation, and we need to figure out how to fight back if we can, or at least be aware of what's going on so that we can do the best we can to prepare, because I do fear that Rebecca's right. I do fear that this is going to get worse. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder. We'll be back in a few.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime.
I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 US bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families through an unlikely alliance between the Chinese government and a British footballer. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. With unprecedented access across the country, this is a unique insight into the lives of the 90s orphans now driving the 21st century's fastest growing economy. This story needs to be told across the world. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right, welcome back to the Larry Elder Show. On the line with me is our guest, Rebecca Walser. She is a top 100 U.S. advisor, tax attorney, a wealth strategist, a certified financial planner, and now a #1 best-selling author of her first book, Wealth Unbroken. So you guys make sure you go out and get Rebecca's book, Wealth Unbroken, Growing Wealth Uninterpreted by Market Crashes, Taxes, and Even Death. Man, I need to read that. All right. All right, Rebecca. All right, so listen, this story Sean just sent me. L.A. I heard about this actually, but I'd never read the story. An estimated 500,000 containers are sitting on cargo ships off the Southern California coast, and people are wondering how that's going to be handled. Have you heard about this? Like shipping containers just sitting there. Apparently, they don't have enough workers to offload them. Obviously, this is going to disrupt the supply chain. It's going to make Christmas horrible. You said we need to shop early. Explain why that is.
You know, and it's so interesting that you bring this up, Carl, because I was just thinking about, you know, we had about maybe 4 weeks ago, we had one person in the third largest port in China, one person test positive for corona, and they shut the whole thing down for 2 weeks. So it gets to the point where you say, yeah, I mean, and so these delays are on both sides. I mean, no offense to California, but we all know how the rules are in California. So, I mean, it's probably like, you know, if anyone is, you know, been exposed to anyone who's been exposed to corona, everyone has to quarantine for 10 days. And we can see the results. We have ships that are off our coastline that have never been so numerous because nobody is working to get these ships in. So I'm not laughing at corona, and I'm not at all minimizing what it is. But I'm certainly saying if we are going to be able to live with corona and go about life and get back to some level of normalcy, then what are we going to do? Because we have set ourselves up to live on the incoming imports of China. That's what we've done. We've all made this bargain. We said, hey, we want our cheap goods at Walmart. We'll be happy if they get shipped across the sea from China. And here we are. And if you cut off our supply chains, what is our country going to do? We're not manufacturers anymore. We're a service industry.
Yeah, this is
a huge problem.
And it's going to be a huge problem for a long time. And we definitely don't have the leadership that seems to want to bring back manufacturing to the U.S. I mean, obviously, we're seeing the issues with cars as well, where we don't have what is it, the little chip that we need in order to make sure our cars are selling correctly or getting off the lots and all that kind of good stuff. All right, so
exactly.
So we should buy.
Shop now, Carl. Shop now, because you might literally see something that is for the kids that you really want, and it's a 2-month lead time, or maybe you can't get it at all. And better to pepper the kids with questions before they start expecting that same thing, because it's going to be a very. I mean, I read trade journals. I'd say 3 weeks ago now that said, "Gosh, if you don't order your Christmas fully by middle of October, you can forget it."
By when? By the middle of October?
Middle of October.
Wow. All right. So, yeah, if you're out and about and you see something or you need to order something, you're right, because if there's an influx of people ordering, it's probably not going to happen with this type of backlog going on. All right. So do you suspect that at the end of the day, the Democrats will ultimately not get this, not achieve this budget reconciliation deal? What do you think will happen in the end?
Well, I wish I had more hope, Carl, and the Republicans up there to really be a fortified bronze wall that nothing could bring down, like the Jeremiah 15. But honestly, I honestly don't see it happening. I feel like I don't know how the numbers could possibly work in the Democrats' favor with 50 senators that are Republicans in name, and having Joe Manchin, who's said from the beginning he is not going to vote for anything above $1.5 trillion. So if you take Joe Manchin at his word and the Republicans were all non-negotiable, if they could just create a block in unity, then we would be fine. But we just don't have people that I trust enough to say, I can confidently say it's not going to go. It's not going to happen, because we have a block of Republicans that unfortunately will be on the liberal side in a lot of cases. And how they Republicans or fiscal conservatives after that in any way or any shape or any form, I don't understand.
If this falls apart, do you think Nancy Pelosi will be able to garner the votes to pass the bipartisan infrastructure plan? Do you think they'll resort to that? Do you think that's a possibility? I don't want them to do it because I'm just as concerned about what's in the bill as much as I am concerned about the amount of the bill, even the 1.2 trillion or whatever it is.
Exactly. See, here's what they do, Carl, and I think you're exactly right. And good for you for realizing this, right? Good for you for realizing, because this is what they do. It's like they're playing with us, like they're our parent, and we're like a little child that is just dumb, right? You set a boundary that's outrageous, like $5 trillion, so that when you come back and say, well, I only want $2 trillion, it seems like you're being reasonable. When really, the American public never would think spending $2 trillion after we just authorized $8 trillion through a coronavirus, and the Federal Reserve is spending $120 billion a month, which is $1.3 trillion a year, in addition to our legislative stimulus that we got for corona. Nobody would say that you can spend another $2 trillion. But because they couch it in the sense of 1.5 or 1 trillion and another 3.5 or 4.5 to 5 trillion, because they made it seem so outrageous, now them pulling back seems like they're doing us a favor.
No. I hate it. Anyway, guys, listen, Rebecca, I appreciate you joining us on the Larry Elder Show. Again, my guest, Rebecca Walser. Go out and get her book, Wealth Unbroken, Growing Wealth Uninterrupted by Market Crashes, Taxes, and Even Death. And per Rebecca, you better get your Christmas shopping on right now. Thank you, Rebecca.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, let's we got time for a call. Let's take Tammy in Sacramento. Tammy, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. You got the mic and you got a minute. Uh-oh, no Tammy? All right, let's go to Josh in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. Josh, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. You got about 50 seconds. You got the mic.
All right, thank you very much, Carl. My question is basically, why shouldn't Washington, D.C. become a state?
Why shouldn't it become a state? The founders didn't want it to become a state because of, that's what the founders wanted. I think it's a good deal. You have all these people. Look at the states that surround it. All these lefties now that literally surround Washington, D.C., the richest and most expensive counties that exist. Can you imagine? Look at all the corruption that already exists around the state. Can you imagine if D.C. itself was a state? I just think it's a bad idea. I think the founders were right to make sure that doesn't become a state, and I like to keep it that way. I don't want PR to become a state either. This is Carl Jackson in for Larry Elder. Larry Elder. We'll be back in a few.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
I would like my fellow conservatives, the majority of whom wanted to leave Afghanistan, to be as intellectually honest as I demand the left is. You must say, I am for the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. If you do not say that, you are a conservative who is not being honest. You cannot say, I am for leaving Afghanistan, but I am against the Taliban taking over Afghanistan. Then you are deluding yourself, and a conservative should never do that. That should be the monopoly of the left. It's equivalent to men give birth, okay? To deny that the Taliban, that you are giving Afghanistan over to the Taliban if you leave.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Talk to our millions of listeners across the country about your plans for Afghanistan, the conditions-based withdrawal, and what we have witnessed, the disaster we've witnessed in the last 3 weeks.
Maybe the greatest, most embarrassing disaster we've ever witnessed in our country. The difference was almost, first of all, it was the opposite. It was the exact opposite. We knocked out ISIS. When I took over, ISIS was all over the Middle East. We knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. I notice now they call it ISIS-K, so you'll explain that. But we knocked out 100% of the ISIS caliphate. We took out al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I would say that this is now on track, Peter, to be the largest airlift in U.S. history. And that is bringing American citizens out. It is bringing our Afghan partners out. It is bringing allies out. So no, I would not say that is anything but a success.
Okay. As the kids would say, OMG. Yeah, we have an extensive vetting process. Sure we do. I've been to the border, lady. No, you don't. No, you don't. But again, back to Kamala Harris. There she is trying to escape this mess by hiding out in Singapore. But there are reporters there, too.
To that end, we have seen a successful drawdown of the embassy.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Larry Elder's Show. I'm your special guest host, Carl Jackson, filling in for the great Eldersky. I'll go to your calls in just a second here. Listen to this. 20% of border crossers tested positive amid the Delta variant surge. Surprised. Mayorkas was supposedly surprised. I don't believe it's just 20%. How do they know? We don't know how many getaways are getting through the border. We have no clue. Mayorkas has no clue. We don't even do great data testing. Within the United States, you know, within our states, we don't even do great data testing compared to the UK, compared to Israel. And so how would they know? These people lie constantly. They have no idea. We have no idea. These biomedical weapons have been launched into the U.S. interior. These people have absolutely no idea. The top border official in the Biden administration admitted to being caught off guard recently by the spike in the Delta variant coronavirus cases among migrants at the border. He said, "What I didn't expect was the tragic rise of the Delta variant." I don't believe him. I don't believe him. How could you not? If there's a worldwide pandemic that you're concerned about, supposedly, how could you not expect that? These people just lie to our face because they think we're stupid. Homeland, and this is what Mayorkas said. He said, "I did not expect to be in late September where we are." Mayorkas, who has for months refused to speak on the risk that infected migrants who are released into the U.S. Post to border communities, said upwards of 20% of that population are sick with the highly contagious disease. He went on to say, "We are confronted with a population of people that, as a general matter, that have a rate of illness of approximately 20%. You know what the solution is? It's to freaking build a border wall. When one is speaking of 7,000 or 7,500 people encountered at the border every day, if one takes a look at that at that system, it is not built for that in a COVID environment where isolation is required." This guy is a disgrace. I don't even know what to say. I don't know if they're just completely evil, completely incompetent. I feel like it's a bit of both. But this is just astounding to me. Let's go ahead and take another call before we check out for a break. Let's go to Jeff in Sacramento. Jeff, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. You've got the mic. And I got to get to Greasy Gavin Newsom. Jeff from Sacramento, welcome to the Larry Elder Show. You got the mic.
Taking my call. So, listen, I had the virus about a year ago. So the question, and basically, since I've had the virus, I've been around many people that have had it. I've had friends who were, let's just say, he had a vaccine, and within a couple of weeks he developed pneumonia. They took him to the hospital, and they gave him the monoclonal, and he cleared up in a couple of days. However, three other friends that we were around developed it a couple weeks later. These people were eating my food. They had their hands on my popcorn and so forth. So you would think I would have got it again or something, because what they're telling us is that you can catch this again. Okay? So I went and had the test done, and I have antibodies.
Right.
So they're not telling us the truth.
Right.
So they're continuously lying to us, and I just wanted to get that out there. People are living in fear, and I just hope that this would relieve some people that, you know, they're just giving us false information. CDC has done reports, and they're ignoring their own reports. They're ignoring their own science. Fauci is a liar. He's, you know, when you're having Rand Paul go after Fauci for gain of function, and there's no coverage on this. You're taking an animal virus and you're making its transmissibility into humans. There's problems here.
Yeah.
So I mean, we could talk about this all day long, but I don't even get me going on the vaccine, because if this is an animal virus, the vaccines don't work on animal reservoirs.
Jeff, listen, we're running out of time, so I do appreciate the call here. But Jeff, you're absolutely right. They're not talking about this stuff. They don't want to talk about this stuff. This is part of the data collection that's missing. People that already have natural immunity, people that already have antibodies, don't need the vaccine, at least not right now. And we do know that the vaccine isn't efficacious. I don't intend on getting the vaccine. I've had it. I have natural immunities. So I'm going to roll with it unless, something else happens. And then, honestly, if I were to get sick again, I'd go right to therapeutics. I mean, the fact that he just spoke of the monoclonal antibodies, obviously they're rationing that now because Biden wants COVID to stick around. But that's where we are. Let me talk to you about Pure Talk. Last month, an absolute landslide of you made the switch to Pure Talk. You were chained to overpriced unlimited plans from Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, then finally decided to make the switch because you know that Pure Talk saves the average family over $800 a year without having to sacrifice coverage. Friends, if you haven't yet made the switch to Pure Talk, this is the easiest decision you'll make today. You can keep your phone, you can keep your number, or get huge discounts on the latest iPhones and Androids. Get unlimited talk, text, and 6 gigs of data for just $30 a month. Or if you still want unlimited data, you can get that and still save a fortune. Experience why Pure Talk is the highest rated wireless company by Consumer Affairs, why they're the preferred wireless partner of AMAC. From your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say Larry Elder, and you'll save 50% off your first month. That's pound 250, say Larry Elder. Pure Talk is simply smarter wireless.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
The Arizona Supreme Court said Tuesday that contractors hired by the state Senate to conduct the audit would not need to release the records from their review by next week. This is only a temporary delay, is what we're being told. A left-wing watchdog group, American Oversight, took its record request to the court and emerged victorious when the Arizona Court of Appeals ruled that Cyber Ninjas, the Florida-based firm leading the audit, was subject to state public records law because it was performing a core government function. Arizona President Karen Fann argued the records should not be publicly released because they're maintained by private contractors, so legislative immunity applies to the documents. It is ordered extending the stay to enable the court to fully consider the issues raised in the petition for review. American Oversight's suit is not the only one leveled against the Arizona Senate. The Phoenix-based Arizona Republic newspaper sued the chamber and Cyber Ninjas on June 30th for access to the host of audit records under the same public records law. Of course, the Arizona Republic is suing. I mean, why would they be reporting? They would be suing people to try to stop the audit. The audit results are coming out soon, despite all of these legal challenges against it. We don't know what it's going to say, but I could tell you that people are very nervous that what might be implemented from, what actually might be exposed from these audit results are going to be significant. Very significant. We know that there were 72,000 more mail-in ballots received than were sent out. We know that this election was interfered with in many different ways, from the Center for Technology of Civic Life, from Mark Zuckerberg's money, and many other people.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Listen to these stats. Hat tip for Gatton Man. Vaccinated people far more fearful than unvaccinated people. Isn't that crazy? I mean, so you get the vaccine, and then it's almost like, you totally negate what the vaccine is for. This is insane to me. If you get the vaccine, you should be able to live your life. The problem is you have all these fearmongers in the Democrat Party on CNN and MSNBC. New York Mayor, California governor, which we'll get to in just a second, just driving people bat crazy. But this is totally insane. They told us, 2 weeks to slow the spread? They're going to take this puppy to 2 years, 4 years if we let them. Anything they can do to fundamentally to use this virus to change America, that's what they're going to do. But vaccinated people concerned about getting a breakthrough case, the poll states, is at 58%. Unvaccinated people are concerned about contracting COVID-19. It's about 44%. Vaccinated Americans are more worried about contracting a COVID infection than unvaccinated Americans. This is according to the new Harris polling that was conducted in consultation with the CDC and provided exclusively to Axios. The science says that the unvaccinated, or this is why it matters, the science says that the unvaccinated have much more to fear and are largely driving the current surge of hospitalizations and deaths. This is a complete and utter lie. They have no idea. We don't have any data collection. We do know that it has been more of the unvaccinated, at least for a period of time, of people, unvaccinated people going into the hospitals. But we now know that they were lying about hospitals being overwhelmed with COVID patients. Still overwhelmingly in places like Florida and Texas, the vast majority of people were not COVID patients in the hospital. And you have the added good news of once these people are infected, if we would actually follow the science, well, now they have natural immunity. Here's what else the poll found. More than half of respondents said they think breakthrough cases are common, including 68% of unvaccinated respondents. So, guys, we have herd immunity. This thing is endemic. It is here to stay. It isn't going anywhere. We need to learn to live with this thing and stop freaking out. For God's sakes. We have turned into a bunch of weaklings inside of the United States of America. Speaking of weaklings, before I go to your calls, let's talk about this guy by the name of Gavin Newsom. So Gavin Newsom signed 2 bills this week that would allow, or was that last week? Last week, I believe, that would allow minors to receive abortion and gender-affirming health care services unbeknownst to their parents. We're talking about people as young as 12 years old. Hey, congratulations, California. You elected a winner. In a news release from Newsom's office published on Wednesday, this was last Wednesday then, the governor announced that his administration will participate in a new advisory group, the California Future of Abortion Council. And he signed 2 bills into law to further the state's commitment to, and I quote, ensuring access to essential reproductive and sexual health care services. And they always have a word game, don't they? The left, reproductive. When you're talking about abortion, there's nothing being reproduced. You have a baby that's being killed. You may disagree with me on abortion. That's fine. But I'm not playing the word games. This is nuts. So parents basically just need to shut up from now on, mind their own business, and keep paying for their kids' food, their housing, their clothing, and eventually their college, so they can be brainwashed by the lefties. This legislation will protect the privacy of patients. Mind you, those patients could be 12-year-old children seeking sensitive health care services, including, again, reproductive health care, creative abortions, and create new safeguards to protect patients and providers from harassment. One of the bills, AB 1356, builds off already existing legislation that's meant to curb anti-abortion rights behaviors. AB 1356 creates new offenses for recording or photographing patients, children, or providers within 100 feet of the entrance to a healthcare service facility. So like a Planned Parenthood. If abortion isn't shameful, if it's a, woman's right to choose, if it's something we should laud, why hide it? Then there's a second bill. The second bill is AB 1184. This protects the privacy of patients who receive sensitive health care services, including, again, abortion care and gender-affirming care, by ensuring patient information. I want you guys to hear what's happening in California. These guys feel emboldened since this recall election to go all in on cray-cray. So by ensuring let me just start over. and the second point I was making, including abortion care, gender-affirming care, by ensuring patient information is kept confidential if they are not the primary policyholder for their health insurance. In other words, a child that is 12 years old can have an abortion or receive some type of care without their parents' knowledge and still bill their parents' health care insurance, with their parents not knowing what the heck they're getting billed for. This is how insane California is under the leadership of Gavin Newsom. This is, I don't know where, this is, okay, there's more. In AB 1184, sensitive services are defined as, listen to this, healthcare services related to mental or behavioral health. Your child has a mental problem, behavioral health problem. Hey, you don't have the right to know. See, this is socialism, folks. You don't even own your kids. You don't even have a right to know what your kids are up to. The government wants to own your kids, just like they brainwash them in college. This is where we're headed. Do you get it? Do you see it? This isn't even the end of this. Sexual and reproductive health. If your child gets pregnant, sexually transmitted diseases, substance abuse disorder. They don't even want you to know if your kid is a crackhead. This is how insane the left is. This is socialism, folks. This is where we are. God almighty. God help us. Seriously, God help us. Domestic violence even. Your kid could be getting beat and they don't want you to know.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime.
I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Fiance? No, I can't be your fiance.
You're gonna go. You're gonna be my fiance, and you're gonna be the most amazing, fascinating, most successful man ever. We're only gonna be there for a few hours, eat dinner, and I promise we'll have the best breakup of all time.
My baby, my princess. Oh, yeah.
I'll beat a little bit.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The only time you can come to Christ, when the Spirit of God comes.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermano. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de sus palabras?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The Democratic Party somehow has convinced black people that they're the good guys. Never mind the skanky history of the Democratic Party. That was a party of slavery. There is a whole big cottage industry for racism. If racism went away, a lot of people would be unemployed.
The mob during the Minneapolis riots following the death of George Floyd. A bunch of white thugs, frankly, burning down the city's traditional black and Asian business districts.
They're racist, racist, racist. Everything's racist.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
If you can stop an earthquake, doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
There's an old brown battered notebook in my office at work. You have to find it, take it, and keep it hidden at all costs.
We are to build a superhuman. We must first eliminate those who are flawed.
People are created equally. All of downtown, the high-rises were built on rollers to withstand horizontal shakes. A vertical quake this size could collapse half of downtown.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
So we're going to go to your calls and take them in rapid fire here. But just real quickly, I want you to understand we've gone through the gamut. I've told you in the first hour and through some of the second hour that the left is trying to overwhelm the system. You have Vermont that is trying to allow illegal aliens to vote. And the RNC is fighting back, and the Vermont GOP. You have the North Carolina hospitals and other hospital systems that are firing workers over the vaccine mandate. That's going to overwhelm our hospital systems even more. They're forcing these nurses and doctors to take the vaccine mandate because what they want to do is force them to comply so that we eventually get socialized medicine. You have Obama urging for national gun reform. Why do you think they want that to happen? Because elites will be in charge. You will have no way to fight back against despots if they take our guns. You have Bernie Sanders urging the House to hold out on the infrastructure deal. I gave you the numbers that they're going to tax the middle class like no one's business. It's a complete and utter lie that the rich will pay their fair share. In fact, it'll be the opposite. The rich will get richer. And we talked to Rebecca Walser about the backups, the Biden inflation that we're even seeing at the Dollar Tree, the shipment cargoes that are literally stuck at our ports. How Biden has this $600 plan that would track all bank transactions over $600, so they can spy on you and check out what transactions you're making, and this is chaos. And then you have these people, the governor Gavin Newsom, that's basically saying, you know what, parents, you don't have a right to know what your children are doing. Even if your children are being assaulted by a partner, you don't have a right to know that. If they want an abortion, if they want a sex reassignment surgery, if they want to become a transsexual, you don't have a right to know, but you better pay for it. These are sick people. This is what the left is doing. Complete and utter sickness. I can't believe it. Listen, we only have time. Listen, I just don't have time, guys. I'm so sorry. I hope you can call back in tomorrow. Don, Lee, Melissa, I appreciate it. Don is saying that Brazilian drug is being suppressed. I wish I knew more about that. We just don't have the time. Lee, Washington, D.C. is federal, not a state. And then Melissa in Sacramento is saying the left is racially profiling. You're absolutely right. As far as Lee is concerned, and I appreciate the calls, guys, the founders intended for the capital of the newly created U.S. to be a neutral ground for co-equal sovereign states to come together to transact the nation's business. That's why they founded Washington, D.C., and separate it the way that it is. At the time, state governments were much more powerful than they are today, so they didn't want extra influence coming out of D.C. This is Carl Jackson. Until next time, guys, don't grow weary, doing good. God bless.